party people? Welcome to yet another edition of DJ to DJ. I am your man, DJ Fernando G, and today we got another talented individual. From DJ to radio personality to starting up record labels, producer, remixer. Let's welcome Tony B. What up, brother? How are you, man?
My man, what's happening? I stiffed you last week. I did you wrong. I apologize officially in front of the world. My transmission went out on my Jeep, so I had to go real quick and get another vehicle because I had a gig that night, and I totally forgot. So I apologize to you and the world for missing you last week, but I'm so honored to be here with you, my man.
Thank you, man. And you know what? It's all good. You know, things are going to happen, and, you know, it's always a blessing because here we are today, and now we can get into it. We could talk about your origins and how you made it to where you are today. So what do you say we get into it right away? How did you get started? How did you discover DJing and turntables and the art of mixing?
And I was thinking earlier, before we started this, my actual first DJ gig. See, first of all, I'll backtrack. I'm in Virginia right now. Where I live right now is about 60 miles south of Washington, D.C. I grew up right outside of Washington, D.C. in Alexandria, Virginia, like immediate suburb. But I would be in the country where my grandparents and parents were born, weekends and summers as a kid growing up.
Right.
So there was zero DJ culture. I knew, like I was watching your episode with Richard a couple weeks ago. Fantastic episode, by the way.
Thank you.
I learned so much about that guy that I spent so many years of my career with. I learned so much I never knew about him. So that was a great episode. But in my high school, there was no DJs. There was no DJ cultures. Only bands. So I played in bands. I started in bands in elementary school, playing drums and any kind of band imaginable. When I was in high school, my last couple of years, I had 3 or 4 band classes, marching band, symphonic band, jazz band, any kind of band. That's what I did. So I think my first DJ gig was at a community pool where I grew up. And we wanted our band. We tried so hard to get our band for they're having some kind of big end of the year party. And they wouldn't book our band, but they said, hey, we'd like a DJ. Knowing nothing about DJ, but having equipment was half the battle. So I did that first gig with 2 of the old school home stereo systems, all-in-one systems, set side by side. And then underneath the table, I had the speakers for each individual stereo mics hanging over it, and then mixed them on the big mixing board. It was a disaster. But that's how I did my first DJing gig, put all that stuff away and never thought about it again for like 2 or 3 years till later. And that's another funny story that happened in Alexandria as well. When my band that I was in had a gig at a Holiday Inn, and my band wasn't very good. I was pretty good, and the lead guitar player was pretty good, but the singer and everybody, it wasn't a very good band. So the gig didn't go very well. I packed up my drums in my van. I go back up to the little bar in the Holiday Inn, Old Town Alexandria, and there was a DJ in there. And that's really the first time I think I really saw a professional DJ. And I had to have been like 18, 19 years old at that point.
Wow. First
time I'd really seen a real DJ. And I was instantly, drawn to it because I'm like, I'd just come off a terrible drumming gig. I'm like, well, this he's playing music. He's in a bar. He's got drinks and there's chicks around. I mean, what more could you ask for? So I started going and watching that guy like every Friday and Saturday night and started becoming at a certain point, it's like, this guy's hanging around. So we started bringing up conversation, and I told him I was interested in what he was doing. And at a certain point, he even let me like push a couple buttons while I went to the bathroom or something like that. And I was hooked. I went to Radio Shack and got one of their little rinky-dink little mixers,
realistic
$60-$70 mixer in the Circuit City, and got 2 of their cheapest $57 Techniques belt-driven turntables. Yep. And I was off. That was it.
That's funny because that's exactly the setup that I had when I got started. I started off with
wobbly ass turntables.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
You had to scratch like this on the side.
I didn't even scratch because those things, man, you would hold it, and the second that thing would, you let it go, boom, it would take off, and so you'd have to like slow it down and make sure that you count up the beat.
Those little pitch controls on the dial, the dial gets
little freaking knob. Yep.
Yeah, you know what, bro? Amen to that. I'm so glad I mixed that way. I think that's why I'm the mixer that I am today, mixing on that crappy ass equipment.
That's funny. So how did you come across learning to beat mix? What was it? I mean, obviously having a drumming background probably came a little easier to you and learning how to keep tempo and stuff like that. But What was your go-to when you actually started beat mixing?
I was just watching this dude, man, and I, like you said, being a drummer and knowing the concept of music, 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars, the way
Mm.
music works was a huge asset, to me. But just watching this dude and figuring it out on my own. I mean, completely other than watching this guy and a little bit of advice, 100% self-taught.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. And what was your first official gig that you could say you were beat mixing, you knew what you were doing, you had the right equipment?
Yeah.
Talk us about
At
that.
that Holiday Inn, actually, that
Really?
they ended up opening up a second bar, and that was during the time that I was, making friends with this dude and learning from him, and they put me in the second bar, and that's where I began my professional DJ career, the Holiday Inn, Old Town Alexandria, Virginia.
Wow. So you actually didn't start doing mobiling. You went straight into
Yep.
bar atmosphere. That's cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
cool. And
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
you at that time were you doing mobiling after you got started doing? Did you start doing weddings and
Bro, I
Sweet
never
16?
did weddings, never did really anything mobile until I moved back to Virginia after my whole time in LA was the
Wow.
first mobile. And I do them now. I mean, I do a handful of weddings a year. I do corporate gigs. That's the beautiful thing about what we do. And I think you and I have in common. There's very few of us that are actually still what I call professional DJs. And that's what we do for a living.
Right.
Now we do other stuff. We do voiceovers. We do this. We do edits. I produce music, all that. But I still, at the end of the day, my bread and butter is still made from DJing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at
Yeah.
this point and where I'm at currently, being right in the middle of Washington, D.C. and Richmond, Virginia and Fredericksburg, that's the city that I'm in. I take, any kind of gig that feels good to me that I think I'm going to have fun and I can make some money. So I'll do a corporate gig, corporate picnic one day and, a rave the next night. It's awesome, man. I love it like that. And that's
cool.
one thing I admire about you is you're very flexible. You can do that, a wedding one day, a corporate gig the next day, rock a rave. That's the beautiful thing about DJing. That's the beautiful thing about the technology, the Serato, all that. We can have all that stuff and I can adapt to any situation right there on the spot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what year did you come to LA?
1986.
Oh wow.
1986.
So
And I was thinking about that earlier too. I mean, I'm probably one of the very few people to go to Los Angeles in the entertainment business in any form where I already had a gig lined up. I didn't go out there and have to hunt or have to search. I mean, I tell you, I've been so fortunate in my whole career, man. Things just always lined up and happened in the right way, I guess, just very blessed. But I got after that Holiday Inn and I started, gig and I started getting a little better, more confident in what I was doing. The only way in those days to get work and to find DJ gigs was the classified one ads.
right.
So I found an ad in the classified in the Washington Post, huge newspaper, legendary still today, very much in the newspaper, and went to an audition up in Maryland. So, and this is my path to Los Angeles. Actually, the guy that I auditioned for was actually from California. He was back in the day, at some point, entertainment director for the Red Onion chain. You know how legendary that was. So
Yeah.
there was a chain out here in Maryland that had opened up that wanted to pattern themselves after that chain. His name was Ken Kashan. So they brought him out to the East Coast and hired him as the entertainment director out here. Said they were opening up a new club in Annapolis, Maryland. I saw the ad in the one ads, went up there, get to the amazing club. I'd never seen a club like this in my life. Was state of the art, everything. Get into the DJ booth, rotary mixer.
Oh.
Never seen a rotary mixer before in my life. I had that little Radio Shack mixer still. And the club at the Holiday Inn probably had a Newmark or something like that.
Right.
Those early.
Was it a Bozak or
Yuri?
Yuri? Yeah.
Yuri. And your boy killed the audition anyway. I freaking slayed it. And the dude hired me on the spot. He made me their number one DJ in that company.
Nice.
I had a long run up in Maryland at various venues for them. And about 6 months in, he left the company and moved back to California. Hadn't heard from him for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Out of the blue, he calls me up, says, Tony, I'm opening up a club in LA. I remember you. I remember your talents, your skill set. I want you to come out and open up this club for me. So I'm like, I'd never been on an airplane, anything at that point in my life. So I'm like, you know what? Let me come out there. For a couple of weeks and just check it out and see if I'm going to like it or I'm going to be a scared little puppy or what. So I went out there, had a great time. Now, another legendary person that I know you're familiar with, Michael Martin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was my partner. He partnered me up with Michael Martin at
Nice.
Carnival in Glendale. That's my first gig in LA. So when I came out to LA for a little visit before that happened to make my decision, he brought me to, man, I'm trying to remember, it was a legendary club like over on Beverly or something, kind of West LA, Oasis or something, where they shot some movie. Anyway, Michael was DJing there.
Century
So
Club?
he brought me into, no, it wasn't the Century Club.
No.
I'll remember it later after we're done with the daggone interview. I'll
Right.
text it. You can edit it in. But anyway, so I went to visit him, and I thought he was a jerk, man. We didn't get along at all, but I still was so, starry-eyed at coming to LA, and went to Universal Studios. That as soon as I got home, I told dude, yeah, I'm packing up my Nissan Sentra. I'll be out there in a couple weeks. So, my first gig in LA, I got brought out across the country. They gave me money to come across country. They put me up a place to stay for like the first 2 weeks till I found my own apartment. Was Carnival in Glendale.
Wow. I remember Carnival. Yeah.
Now, and I mean, and so blessed because the first day that thing opened, it was jam packed from day one.
Yeah.
And it was, white boy from Virginia, and it was pretty much a 90% Latin club.
Yeah.
But we didn't play Latin music. We played all American music, which was
Very
crazy.
cool.
But the place was packed from day one.
Yeah, I remember it was funny because I never realized that you were there, but when I started working at Power 106, I went in with Richard into the music research department, and later I transitioned into the promotions department. And I remember going over there and doing, promotions and handing out T-shirts and stuff like that. And I'm sure I seen you, but for whatever reason, we would just come in and say, "Hey, what's up, man? We're here to do our thing," and that was it. And it was funny because I normally, had I not been working in radio, I probably would have been all starstruck watching you and stuff, because I used to just love going to the clubs and checking out the DJs and listening to it. But I do remember it was awesome, man.
Yeah. You might have been there a little bit before I was there because I started off in radio at KISS.
Mm.
Because at Carnival, we did a lot of stuff with KISS FM. All the DJs would come and stuff like that. And it was, moving on in my evolution in LA of how lucky I was and everything fell into place. While I was at Carnival, we had those connections with the radio stations. Michael Martin, that's where he started his path into radio, interning at KISS.
Mm.
Then for me, I went into, thanks to Tony Largo, a.k.a. Tony Morales.
Tony Morales.
He got me probably the biggest break in my career. He got me to become a Billboard reporter. He really pushed for me to become, because Carnival just opened up so hot, that he was running LA DJ Record Pool. He had all those great relationships with the labels, and he hooked me up, man. Within probably 2-3 months of being in LA and at that club, I was a Billboard reporter.
Wow. Now,
back in those days, how huge that was.
Yeah.
I mean, that was as big as being a program director.
Exactly. No, you were catering to you were catering to program directors and DJs, and everybody was looking at that.
Yeah.
Now at KISS FM, what was your role there?
Michael brought me in just to help out with mix shows. And when he was doing the Bustin' Out Saturday night, when KISS was still down on Hollywood or Sunset Boulevard, we used to do that. And then for a little short stint, they gave him KISS AM. They gave Michael Martin complete control of KISS AM, and it was a 24-hour mix station, except for the 4 or 5 hours that Rick Dees was on in the morning. They simulcasted Rick Dees. The rest of the day was mixing. Now, back in the day, the way radio ratings worked, if you simulcasted AM and FM like they did originally before they did the mix station, you could combine those ratings.
Yeah.
Okay, and overall ratings. But that station, the mix station, KISS AM, did so well that it started pulling ratings from KISS FM. So they're like, we got to get those. We got to get that back into the share. We got to put those two back together. That it was too successful, and they had to stop it.
Wow, that's wild.
The way I got the power from there was I was at an industry, some kind of industry thing. I believe it was at the Mayan, and Rick Cummings came up to me and said, "You're Tony B, right? Tony B." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I need to talk to you." Gave me his card. I called him, a couple days later and set up a meeting. And went in and had a meeting with him, and that's how I made I was just doing it for free at KISS. I was just helping Michael out. I was just honored to be on the radio. And Michael Martin, again, a huge person in my career. He's the one that taught me how to edit on reel to reel. I know you guys were talking about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Richard is probably number 2 on my list of top editors that I personally have worked with. Michael Martin, number 1. Guy was a freaking genius on a reel-to-reel. See, I got one back here.
There you go. So after your radio career, you get into that. At what point do you start getting into producing and discovering your talent for creating your own tracks?
I got to give a lot of that credit again to Richard Humpty Vision. I'm not supposed to call him that anymore, but Richard Vision, AJ Mora, working with those guys early on in my time at Power is when Richard had just started Power Tools. So he instantly brought me in to be co-host on that show, man, which was another huge thing for my career. If it wasn't for Power Tools, I don't think either one of us would be anywhere where we are today. So that was a huge opportunity. And, just knowing those guys and the success that they had as the movement, I met AJ and, because I think it just was a natural progression, man. And you know this too. When you get early on in those days, first of all, I consider that era of Power 106 the golden era of radio.
Yeah.
Even at my last radio job I had here in Fredericksburg, I used a lot of the things I learned at Power 106 and working for Rick Cummings and Michelle Mercer. I still would use them today if I was in radio, because that's how radio was supposed to be done, the way those guys did radio.
Yeah.
So, just to have that opportunity, and the natural progression was we had great relationships with record labels.
Yeah.
Because of, I was a Billboard reporter, and then because Power Tools became such a monumental show, we were breaking so much music that we had great relationships with record labels. And Richard and AJ having the success that they did as the movement and being great producers and stuff, we started getting opportunities to do remixes. So I think, helping out and working with those guys on a few remixes was my kind of caveat into remixing, even though before Kiss FM and stuff like that, I did spend some time working for Delicious Vinyl Records.
Oh, yeah.
The label had Tone Loc and Young MC.
Yep.
I ended up being the national director of pop promotion when I left there. That was right before I transitioned to Kiss FM. I actually worked there for like 2-3 years, man. And I was on the road for like 6 months. They had me on the road with an artist for 6 months, a rapper named Jesse James, white rapper. And we were doing, one day would be a radio station show for 32,000 in Cleveland. The next night we'd be in a frat house. But we were on the road for 6 months, and that just burnt me out from that at that point of the record label business. So that's when I went into radio, But during that time, I had done a few little remix projects for Delicious Vinyl, not actually hands-on, but sitting kind of in the side seat giving advice and stuff like that. So cool. I think, and with my experience as a drummer and music and stuff like that, I always felt I had that. But it was that connection with Richard and AJ and the natural progression of having this mix show in a major market, having great relationships with record labels. And basically, they wanted to do anything they could do to get us to play their records. So they figured if we throw these guys a remix, they're going to play our records. I mean, in a way, is that a little bit of payola?
Yeah, there's and back in those days, payola was all over the place. So it still is, but they just know how to hide it differently.
I mean, it was and just I bought my first piece of gear from AJ Mora, and it came with the 15-minute AJ Mora tutorial.
That's cool.
Sonic 16, and Sonic 16 Plus.
Oh, and, I remember that in Sonic. It was funny because
that started me too, bro. That is
my
legendary.
gosh.
And I passed it on to John.
Okay, yeah.
John got it after me and did some incredible production on that thing, with him and a guy named Renee.
That's funny. I mean, AJ and I go way back as well. Like Richard, I've known him since elementary, but AJ, I met him in junior high, and we used to mess around. It was him, my buddy Abe, my buddy Jerry, myself. We'd go to AJ's house, and he had this piano in his house, and he would just start jamming. And I was like, dang, dude, you get down. And then all of a sudden, from one summer to the next, he got himself his first keyboard. And then the second one was the Ensoniq. And that's when I told Richard, you guys got to get together, man. You guys got to, brainstorm and work something. Cause
you put those two together? I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude, it was funny because Richard and AJ, they were polar opposites, really. I mean, back in the day, AJ was a little more reserved and stuff, but very talented. And Richard just had such a creative mind. And even though we all kind of went to junior highs, we were all kind of like all over the place. But I started hanging out with Richard when we were going to Franklin High School, and we were DJing together. And then I said, you really got to talk to AJ. And at the beginning, it was a little bit on the rough side because, AJ would start talk in technical terms, and Richard wouldn't get
Yeah.
it, but Richard was trying to tell him the
Not
exact
the
same thing
technical guy.
and stuff, and so they would butt heads. I go, look,
Yeah.
just learn how to communicate, man, and boom, the rest was
Yeah.
history. Because then when they took off, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. I was doing a gig a couple of weeks ago, an outdoor gig. I played after a band, a really nice outdoor spot. And as soon as I got done, I'm packing up. I tell the guy, all right, put your house music back on. And this place, I'm actually there again tonight. They play a lot of 80s and 90s videos. That's kind of their shtick, their whole theme musically for the place.
Cool.
And as soon as I pack up, the first thing it turns on is Jump by the Movement. And I'm like, no freaking way. And then I go inside and the video's actually playing. So I filmed it and I sent it to AJ.
That is cool.
I can't get away from you, man. Yeah, those guys, I love those guys, man. And if it wasn't for them, there wouldn't be a Tony B without that camp.
That's awesome. What was the exact first remix that you did that you worked on with them?
I think the first actual thing that I'm thinking the three of us did together, now that I think about it, was Understand by Three Guys on Warwick.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't know, right around that era we were doing remixes, but I think that might have been the first thing that the three of us actually sat down together and did together. Because when I bought the keyboard from AJ, he gave me that little lesson, and I kind of went off and did some stuff on myself on my own. But I think that's the first thing. It's a funny story too. The first time working with them, I'm like, I'm the outsider, and I'm coming from a little more of a musical background, playing drums and music classes, since an early age. And I'm just coming, I just wanted to come in hot, I wanted to come in fresh, and we're working on something, and these guys, all right, so we need a clap next. We need a clap. Let's just find a clap sound. I'm like, no, guys, no, man, we're pros. We're not going out like that. Let's clap, record it, and that's the clap we're going to use, and they're like, oh, okay, Tony, let's try that. So if you could picture us three idiots, 1, 2, 3, trying to clap together all the microphone. We never used it. It ended up sounding like crap, but I tried to flex on them. I don't know if they'll remember that, but I'm like, I don't want to go in. I'm working with these guys the first time. I got to come in there and make some impact, So we're not using those stock clap. We're gonna stupid.
That's funny. That's funny. And
that
when
was on Warwick, that was on Warwick. Three Guys on Warwick in Richard's little studio apartment behind somebody's house.
That's funny. That's funny. And how did Aqua Boogie come about? I mean, because you guys all
out of that record right there. I think that was the record. It had such, and we got that Understand. We ripped from Bad Boy Bill was one of his big sayings that he would have his mixtapes and stuff like that. So I think the success of that record right there, and again, having the platform of Power Tools was everything.
Yeah.
That had the connections with the labels and got us the connections. We had sponsors, record stores that if we put a record out, they're going to put it in their store and they're going to push it. So it was just a natural progression.
That's awesome. That is very, very cool. So let's move up a little bit. When do you move back to Virginia?
I moved back in 2006.
2006.
2006, yeah.
Wow. And now, was this just something that was you were tired of LA, you needed a change? What was the reasoning to, or was it just?
There was multiple reasons.
Yeah.
I think that number one is, that was, house music, all kinds of music go up and down.
Yeah.
And it's weird, bro, because, I'll be honest, I do stuff and I do things once I came back here that I wouldn't do in LA. I couldn't, for some reason, I couldn't fathom, and this is the ego showing. This is straight ego, guys, right here. Okay. This is where ego gets in the way. Okay. I couldn't bring myself to become an open format or different kind of DJ than I was in LA. I just couldn't do it. I felt personally that I would let too many people down. I would be a sell. I don't know, bro. I just couldn't do it. My pride was too big. So after the kind of, and even, I did a lot of years touring, and that started slowing down after 9/11 and the Anti-Rave Act, which is something that Joe Biden was involved in. Ironically, he was the one who spearheaded the Anti-Rave Act. But those couple things really, the years after that, it just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled, and then house music wasn't as popular as much on the radio. Therefore, it wasn't as popular in the clubs, and it was one of those times when it was a switch back to hip hop.
Yeah,
and that was number one. Number two, financially, of course, if you're not making money, it's difficult to live in LA.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to take I've been a professional entertainer my entire adult life. I've never really taken any kind of job outside of the industry, and I wasn't willing to do that there. Even though I probably should have for my family, I should have, but I wasn't willing to do it. And my folks out here in the area are, still kicking, thank God. But they, even back then, were getting up in the years, and I wanted my family to know my family from out there to know my family from out here, and be around for my folks.
That's cool.
So it was kind of a combination of those things, and kind of just needed a break.
Yeah.
Needed a
Sometimes
break.
that happens, man.
Yeah,
And you,
yeah.
you got to just, get away from it all. And it also helps you, helps your creativity many times. So let's talk technology. When you got started producing tracks, what was the equipment that you were using back then, and what are you using now?
Like I said, that Ensoniq 16 Plus and advanced to an ASR 10, a Kai S3000 sampler. Just, then I got up. Those first keyboards were workstations, all in one thing. So you did
Yeah.
everything all in that one. First computer program I used was Cubase. I think that's the
Cubase.
same one Richard and them started with. They started on an Atari.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all started on like an Atari or an old Mac or something like that. So
Yeah.
progressed to Cubase, and then nowadays, if I'm doing stuff solo by myself, I do it on Logic. The main partner that I produce with, DJ Chubb, we do stuff together as Noise Ninjas. He kind of runs the show on those productions, and he does Ableton.
That's cool. That's cool.
And I'm a Logic guy, right? I like Logic.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm just now getting into Logic. I mean, my very first software that I used to produce remixes was Cakewalk Home Studio.
Right.
That's what I started off with, man. And I kid you not, man, it took me like 3.5 months because it came with this book that was like, I kid you not, this thick. And I was like, how the hell am I going to go through this? And I was just like, I just want to learn how to record, And so I had to look and find how to record audio, how to set up MIDI, and man, and then AJ was the one that introduced me to MIDI, and I was like, I don't know what MIDI. It was funny because I'll never forget. I'm all like, dude, I don't get it. I don't understand MIDI. He's all, bro, music. What was it? Music interface, digital instrument digital interface.
I still never know that.
Yeah, I was like, what the heck? I don't get it. But little by little, we ended up getting it. It was hilarious. But so today, you're running Logic. Isn't that crazy? How it's? I didn't realize that GarageBand and Logic were kind of very similar to it. Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I'm just now getting into it, so I was like, oh man, this is wild. But obviously, Logic has many more bells and whistles to have fun with, man. So that's pretty cool.
And I use, probably for you too, when I'm doing more like radio imaging or voice work or something like that, I still use Adobe Audition for that.
Yeah. That's my go-to for all my radio spots and things like that I do. So my voice editing is very cool. So today, are you working on any new productions right now that we can look forward to?
I'm always. I tell you, that's the beauty of today. I mean, I could do a song today and it could be out tomorrow. Even on either through iTunes or Google Play, whatever, all the platforms. So constantly working on stuff with my buddy down the street, Mr. Noise Ninja, DJ Chubb. I've got a couple. I tell you, you go through phases in this, man, and with the crazy world that we're in right now, it's been really difficult for me to focus and concentrate on finishing productions right now. We've got a couple things out over the past couple months, and I got one track, man, I'm really proud of, the kind of country thing that I sent you. I did with
which I was like, it was funny because when you sent me, I saw Noise Ninjas. Like, oh, that sounds pretty cool name. And then I opened it up and I was like, this Tony B? And I was like, I wasn't sure because it was such a different sound. And it wasn't until I actually completed reading your email that you said this is a total different sound for me. But after listening to it a couple of times, I said, okay, I can see where Tony B is in
kind
on
of on
this.
that. I don't know if you're familiar with country music, but there's this dude Kane Brown that is really popular. So it's kind of on that Kane Brown vibe. But I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about where I live now, man. And this little town in the middle of Washington, D.C. and Richmond, Virginia, there is so much, and it's probably everywhere now because of the internet. People learn so much. People are exposed to so much. People, get inspired so much more, and they see that, hey, I can do this, I can do that. So there's so much talent here in this area. And I just find myself right now, one thing I admire about Richard, one of my last trips out, I visited him in his studio and just really admired the way he had made his life exactly the way he wanted it to be, where he gets up in the morning, goes and has his coffee and goes and works on music all day long.
Yeah.
And trying to do, not sticking with the same thing that we've always been successful with, which is house music.
Yeah.
Trying to make, I mean, now again, I DJ all kind of different gigs, so I play all different kinds of music. I'm surrounded by great, talented people that inspire me. So we work together and we come up with things that 5 years ago I would have never come up with.
Yeah.
So I am working on this one track with a guy who had a little bit of viral fame. He's called the Dancing Deputy. He's been on a couple. I think he was on Steve Harvey. I think he was on a couple other shows. But he's an awesome individual here in the area. He's the deputy. A great story. I won't get into it, but I'm working on a track with him that'll be really phenomenal when it comes out. I have a couple ideas, but I'm just having a hard time with the environment because I'm doing gigs again, but they're not like crazy
Right.
house, ravey type underground gigs that I like, and that's where I really get inspired to produce music. And then making music, if I'm making music for that lane, then I got to have an outlet for it. You know what I'm saying? And I need more so if I want other people to play it, they have to have an outlet for it.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if it's there, other than the streaming thing, of course, but I just think those songs, I make songs for the dance floor. When I'm making house, not, the country thing, but when I'm making house, I'm making it for one thing. I'm making it for dance floor play. I'm not making it for easy listening. I'm not making it for when you wake up in the morning. I'm making it for a dance floor. So I need to hear it on a dance floor.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been for me, this pandemic has obviously had its ups and downs for me. You know what I mean? It's the downs is that, we're stuck. You know what I mean? Not much we can do. We're still closed over here. So my business for events and weddings and, concerts and things like that is shut down completely. However, it did open my creativity in another aspect. For example, I'm starting to produce again. I'm starting to come up with my own tracks. Literally just started working this week, finally getting back into it. Creating this podcast, things of that nature. How have you been dealing with the pandemic, and has it been tough or has it been a blessing as well?
I think I agree with you 100%. I think it's been both. Of course, I feel, let's be real. Everyone whose health has been affected, everyone who's lost a loved one, I mean, it's devastating. So, we can't ever lose sight of that.
Yeah,
that over 210,000 people have lost their lives. People's health that have survived it, some of them, their health, they'll just never be the same again.
Yeah.
So that's devastating. For me, actually, my son had it.
Oh,
my son is a 911 dispatcher. He got COVID early on in it. And my wife and I, he lives here with us, we were quarantined for 14 days, and we luckily we've been fine. I've had to limit my connection and contact with my folks, because of their age and their medical condition during this whole thing, which has sucked. But work-wise, it was tough financially. I'm blessed, so I made it all right for a while. But as we got into the third month, it was getting a little tough.
Yeah.
But things did, open up early on here. But I would say the streaming thing. I was early on in the streaming. I don't even really do it anymore because I was so early on in it. You know what I'm saying? And this really, I tell you, for probably about 2.5 months, that's all I focused on. My wife was getting mad too. She's like, doing it again. But I was, and I would do it. And I was really proud of myself because I think I really broke some ground with it, and I inspired a lot of people with it. And I know I helped tons and tons of people, telling them how to hook up their equipment, how to get into OBS, the basics, and all that stuff. But I did things early on that nobody that I saw, and I'm friends with a lot of freaking DJs on my 5,000 friends on Facebook and Instagram and stuff. I saw nobody that was doing what I was doing early on with multiple DJs from different locations. One of the first real ones I saw do that from our clique was like Richard and Bill.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I was doing that like probably 2 weeks in. I was at my house. My other buddy was at his house. My other buddy was at his house. And we had another screen, dancers.
Wow.
One on a pole, one just freestyle, and I pulled that stuff off like 3 weeks into the pandemic, so that's learning cool. All that. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff before, and any of the technical aspects. Luckily, I got DJ Chubb down the street, who's an IT genius, who helped me with all of it. And
that's
it was
cool.
hands-on with all of it. And then jumping in, I was so excited to do in the quarantine gardens, Alex, Diablo out there. I got involved with that early on. We did a dome night and house parties in the 90s Instagram page, which has like what 70, 80,000 followers.
Yeah.
Now, something like
I'm
that.
actually going to be on the on the 23rd of this month. So I'm real excited about that, man.
Yeah.
They're,
I
they
mean, but just it's just amazing. And it was so awesome for me, being across the country and to reconnect with all those people and to still see that, man, that era just has some incredible fans that still love that era. And just, I think we touched so many lives during that era, man. The
yeah,
messages and texts and stuff I get is it's just amazing,
it
dude.
is. It's awesome. Who are you listening to now as far as DJs that somebody new or something that that you say, man, this guy's got the talent, or she's has the talent. Who's turning you on right now?
You know what? That's a great question. If you asked that question 3 weeks ago, I wouldn't have an answer for you. I would not have an answer. We did a really cool kind of intimate house gig. Chubb and myself as Noise Ninjas about 2-3 weeks ago at this place called the Project Factory, one of the few places open around. And Chubb did a great job of bringing local talent together. Some people that are really like about to blow up. We had a female. I mean, gosh, the whole lineup was incredible. We had a dude from down here in my area called Brandon Taylor. So Lost, I think he goes by. Incredible set. Really like the stuff he's playing. I mean, local guys. That's who I care about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's beautiful about the beautiful part about what's going on right now is we're all back in an even playing field.
Yes.
Even, baby. We're all the same. So these two guys together as Taco Tuesday were so much fun. They played music that reminded me a lot of me in the Hard House days, because there's so much great music out right now. They're playing these hard, just squeaky noises and stuff like that. They were amazing. And this female named Confetti the First, she was amazing too. So those three here in my area are people that not only do I like and admire, I want to help.
That's cool.
And I think that's where you with this show and the things that you do, I think we're similar parts of our career where that's a big part of what I want to do. It's always been a big part of what I do. I've always tried to put people on back from the Power Tools days, how we always had guests. I've always had guest mixers, even the radio. I did radio here for like 12 years straight. I ran a radio station here and I brought local mixers in and try to give everybody a platform that I think is a good person.
Right.
First I was looking for the heart of the people. And I got some great people surrounding me. And I'm so fortunate that they're also amazingly talented,
Well, you definitely surrounded yourself by very talented people. I mean, and I think that definitely helped you grow to your success, quickly. So let's talk nightclubs, man. Of all the places you've been and spun at, what would you say was the club that just stood out and said, man, this place was just sick?
I got two answers. One is going to be an individual one-off gig that sticks in my head the most. It's probably the most incredible gig I ever had. And then the second, I'm going to give you the same answer as Richard Vision. The Dome was so pivotal for us. And, man, just brings feelings when I just say it. You know what I'm saying? That place blew us up. That made us, that Power Tools had just started. Power Tools, the Dome, Aqua Boogie Records. It was the triangle, whatever you want to call it. Those three things.
The trifecta.
Yeah, but the Dome for a regular occurring residency was just amazing. One gig with David Alvarado and Oporto, Portugal. David Alvarado, one of the most incredible house DJ producers, one of my house heroes, David Alvarado. So I did a record on his label Bomb Records. It did pretty well. He released it as an import, and so we got a little tour off of it. So I was over touring with him over there, and Oporto is where port wine comes from. Just, picturesque river running through. I'm in like this castle in the dungeon, stone and brick. And I'm playing an after-hour set. I think I'm playing during my set, the sun comes up. Let's just say that. All right. So it's a 2-hour set. The sun is coming up. Just the most incredible sound system and bass I'd ever heard to date in my career to that date was just amazing. And just rocking and seeing that sun rising through that window, like almost a dungeon window with bars, seeing that sun and just the people going nuts. And that was like my second gig on that European tour. And it was just that moment, that magical moment will never leave my mind. Those are the two answers. The Dome,
that is cool.
But the Dome.
Yeah, man. Well, I was on air. I was doing the Spanish rock thing on Viva 107.1 when the Dome, had taken off. But I would get off when you guys were going on. So by the time, because you guys were doing the overnight thing, before it crossed over to the main thing. And I'll never forget. I would literally get off the air, boom, pack on my headphones, run downstairs to my car to turn it on, because I always loved that Adonis intro. Don 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 don
Yeah.
don don don. Oh man, I used to just, boom, that would just bring goosebumps, man. But obviously, I mean, I was burnt out, and I never got a chance to actually go to the club. So that was one of the things that I wish I had been able to partake in, because like all of you guys were there, Richard, AJ, Alex, Jumbo, rest in peace, I mean, just all the guys that I grew up with. And unfortunately, I was off doing my thing, and so I didn't get a chance to partake. But man, just listening to you guys and everything that you guys were doing was just totally inspiring. And you can totally see why, younger DJs that they listen and they say, man, I remember listening to you guys in the Dome and this, and they get so inspired by you guys, because you guys brought a whole new thing to Los Angeles, something that nobody had ever done. I mean, Power 106 and Kiss FM had done their, parties from like the Palace and stuff like that. But the niche that you guys created it's unforgettable. And that's what you were saying.
A big part of that success too was just the connections and the record labels, because the Dome was the place where we were bringing the artist. Excuse me. Other places weren't bringing the artists like we were until 2 or 3 years in, and they finally figured out how to do it. But we were getting most of those artists for free, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because we had those relationships with the labels, or at least really great prices. And then number two, the greatest club owner I've ever worked with, Kenny. The owner of Florentine Gardens, he still owns it today. I mean, that's a testament.
Kenny McKenzie.
Charlie Chaplin and Marilyn Monroe partied in that joint.
Yeah.
So did Tony B. You know what I'm saying? And many, many other great people as well. But that's he. When you think about being promoters and being DJs and stuff like that, most of the situations as a promoter is, even in those days, you'll get a percentage of the door. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that's the way it works. You got to put up money for this. Well, we opted not to do that at Florentine Gardens. Richard and I went in and we opted just to get a flat fee. Good flat fee. I ain't complaining about that flat fee, because we were probably at that point definitely the highest paid resident DJs in California, LA area at that point. So it was a good flat fee. But if we would have opted for the other route, brother, woo! But the amazing thing about Kenny, because we opted for that route, he would fund all of our projects. Even now, some, like I think it was I have the picture up here somewhere, the Power Tools, the Dome 1 year anniversary, when we had all these artists. I mean, we threw that party was like a $40,000 party.
Wow.
The overhead was $40,000. Now that's nothing for these huge events nowadays. That's They spent that on one DJ.
Chump change. Yeah.
In those days, that was a huge, huge budget. And we had such a great relationship with Kenny that he would front that kind of money. You know what I'm saying? And Richard and I would not have to come out of pocket for the money. Yeah. But if we would have opted for the other route and took the door.
Yep.
We'd keep doing this interview, but I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be sitting a little someplace else.
Exactly. What's funny is that had you guys taken the door option, once you packed it in, I guarantee you would have gotten a piece of the bar as well, negotiating it properly. Yeah. So, I mean, because the nightclub owners will always offer you the door. They'll say, yeah, take the door, because they make their money at the bar. That's where the big bucks are. If you can pack the place, they're going to be happy campers. You could charge 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 bucks a head to people to come in, and they're going to pay it because you got great talent such as yourself, Richard, and these guys. They're going to come in. But if you're not pulling in the people,
that was a little different situation there. He needed that door money because it was an 18 and over club.
That's true.
So the bar didn't make quite as much money. I mean, we always had a big 21 and over crowd, and the bar was always packed. He always did very well at the bar. But being an 18 and over club, it was the parking lot pimping. They were getting wasted in the parking lot.
And you know what? It's funny that you bring that up, because I think that was another element to the success. Had this been a straight up 21 and over club, it probably would have gone well. But the fact that it was 18 and over is
at that time, it would not have, a 21 and over would not have worked in that size venue. Mm-hmm. We did one, after the Dome was successful, we started Diva, which was that will probably be number 3 or 4 on my list of favorite gigs. Diva was an amazing environment to DJ in when we first started it at Shelter in Pasadena. So we took the similar formula from the Dome, and we kind of tweaked it and transformed it and had to put it in a smaller venue, more intimate to make it work. But it, for a Sunday night club, Diva was another amazing run that we had, man. It was just, it was Swedish Eagle, Richard. My Swedish Eagle would always start off with reggae and just rock reggae for like the first hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And I was next up. Usually always I did the second set and started off with what is now classic house, Brighter Days are I Can't Get No Sleep India, with those dramatic vocal intros.
Right.
And just whoom, the dance floor. I mean, they were just fiending for it. And those two places, especially as residencies, where people just fiended for new music. Whereas today, even when you go and do a rave thing now today, you can't play really obscure, crazy shit that they've never heard.
Yeah.
They still need something to grab onto. But back in those days, man, you could just play anything that I felt was good. They trusted me and they felt was good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, brother, we are coming up to the end here. So before we depart, what's up next for you, and what do you want to tell the kidlings out there that are starting up right now?
I tell you, man, as far as people coming up, you got to produce music. I think you've got to be a music producer to make it as a big time DJ now. It's a huge part of it. But play on whatever the hell you want. Don't let anybody tell you got to do this way, or this way. The people on the other side of the speakers don't care how you're doing it. They just care what it sounds like. So do whatever way you want. And people are gonna beat me up for this one. If you want to use the sync button early on, use the daggone sync button. I don't care. Just be good. Don't let me come out and hear shit off beat, please. I don't want to do whatever you got to do to not be off beat.
That's funny.
Always have a backup plan. Don't choose this as your full-time profession until the money merits it being a full-time profession, because it's tough.
Good advice.
It's tough. Always have another way to make money. And even you and I now, I'm a full-time entertainer. I kind of consider myself semi-retired, meaning that I only take what I want.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I don't take everything that comes my way by any stretch of the imagination. I probably turn down more work than I take. Even like as far as weddings, I only want to do weddings if I have a connection with that couple.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's such an intimate job. Weddings always scared the crap out of me, dude, because that woman, the bride has been dreaming about that since they were 5 years old. And I don't want to be the dude to mess it up. So I get crazy anxiety doing weddings. So I try to only do weddings with people that have a connection with, you know what I'm saying? But just, have a backup plan and have multiple streams of income. Like you and I, one day we'll do radio drops for people or DJ drops, and one day we'll do a wedding, and one day we'll do a corporate gig, and one day I got a buddy over before we started. He came in and he needed some music edits done. So I knocked out 2 hours of music edits.
There you
go. I jumped on this, So whatever you got to do, be able to do anything. And
deal.
that's a beautiful thing about the technology and the prices of things is, and YouTube University, you can learn it all.
Oh, trust me, man. YouTube has been my school for several years now. I mean, everything that I need to learn is on there, man. So it works out great. Well, listen, brother, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate you being on, taking the time to sit and chat with us here and tell us your story. It's always freaking amazing to hear talented people talk about how they got started and how they got to where they are today, man. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, brother.
And of course, everybody that's watching, remember that Tony B's links are going to be in the description below. If you like this show, please click that like. Of course, hit the subscribe button and slap that bell so that you get notified when I have another amazing talent. Tony B, God bless. Stay safe, brother. And hopefully, we'll see you soon out here in LA, man.